possible, so people can actually interact with objects that are associated with events in the comic book, or replicas of fossils that helped inspire the comic book itself. And this is actually one of my students modeling for me, so I could figure out how big a Mastodon femur should be relative to this one of the 3D printed replicas. This is Anna Carter, who actually did a lot of the sculptures for the exhibit. And so just some pictures of the exhibit itself. Here's the replica of Ben Franklin from the 3D scan I did in Philadelphia, along with the replica of Ben Franklin's Mastodon tooth. And then my students are spelling out VCU using the mammoth tusk as the C. These are two. The woman in the front is actually a blind curator who worked with us on the exhibit and did a lot of the content, and that's her wife behind her. And they were able to sort of road test aspects of the exhibit, including an audio version that we did of the comic book. And this just talking to folks after the sort of exhibit as well. So one of the blind visitors really reacted to this particular sculpture of a moose. Probably not something you learn in normal histories of Thomas Jefferson, but he mailed a dead moose to France that was not in particularly good shape when he got it, and so it was probably in pretty bad shape by the time it got to France. And it didn't have the original antlers because they somehow got lost before Jefferson got it. But the blind visitor reacted to being able to sort of feel the moose and feel the antlers. And that made the comic a little bit more real for her. 3D replicas and research. So as archaeologists, identification of archaeological finds is really important to us. Traditionally, you would use books with drawings and pictures, but it's hard to get a real sense for the three-dimensionality of something from a 2D picture. So by 3D scanning and 3D printing all kinds of stone tools, that's been really handy for doing identifications, because you can match the object based on the shape and also the size. So, and then luckily with 3D printing, you can print, literally 10 or 12,000 years of heritage on one printer bed. And these are also, a lot of these are actually, thanks to a lot of museums, are free for researchers to download. So you can look at them online, but you can also download and print them. And people I've talked to find the 3D prints to be a little bit easier to work with than even using a 3D model on screen. One that you can manipulate. We work with a number of museums for the 3D scanning, and one of them is actually the National Museum of Health and Medicine, which is the Army Medical Museum. They have important collections, but because they're on a secure military base, if you're a non-US citizen, you can't actually go see the collections. So we've been helping them scan some of their more important objects to make them available to researchers around the world. And this just, you can see the models online, but you just can't download them without permission from the Army itself. And one of the skulls we scanned was of an individual who's thought to have been interpreted to be a vampire. So in the mid-1800s in New England, there was a vampire scare. People were getting tuberculosis, and it was some people thought tuberculosis was being caused. The conditions that tuberculosis causes in a person was being actually vampire attacks. So this grave was found by a bunch of kids playing. When the archaeologists excavated the grave, they found that the person's upper leg bones had been removed and crossed under his skull. So he's been interpreted as one of these people thought to have been a vampire. And we have a short comic about that as well. So we also have the world's oldest ham. So we were actually approached by the Isle County Museum to 3D scan this ham for them. It's a way for them to monitor its preservation, but they also use the ham a lot in their public tours. So we've made, this is the second 3D printed replica we've made of the ham for them. And you can actually see the ham 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on HamCam. So if you want to see the ham, it doesn't do much. But you can sometimes watch the other people visiting the museum. So, and actually, when we 3D scanned the ham for this particular time, people were watching it from all over the world, and some people contacted the museum to make sure the ham was okay, since it had been taken out of its case. So, people also leave gifts for the ham, like jars of mustard and cans of pineapple and stuff. So. And this is, yeah, so this is just a kid holding the 3D printed ham. We actually, I should have gotten this from you, Sabine, I didn't think about it. Iron Man held a ham yesterday, the replica, so. One of the, I actually got approached by the Virginia War Memorial to 3D scan a World War II veteran. He was somebody who had volunteered for the museum for years. He was, I think, 95 when I 3D scanned him. It might have been 93. So I 3D scanned him. He was very nice about it. We, of course, 3D printed him. Here he is taking a break before the next stage. And then one of my students 3D painted him to look like he looked the same uniform he would have worn in World War II. And the reason they wanted him is they actually got a model of the plane that he was shot down in. And when his plane was hit by the Germans, he couldn't get out through the escape hatch, so he had to kick his way out of the back of the plane. And he ended up sitting on the tail of the plane while it was going down. And kind of like, what do I do next? He had never actually used a parachute before. So he decided, okay, well, I guess I got to use this parachute. He parachuted out, landed, broke his back, got captured by the Nazis, and spent a year in a POW camp. So he was very excited to get himself put on the tail of the plane. If you go to the War Memorial today, you can see, mostly just see his feet, because the plane has got to be high enough that people can't jump up and pull it down. And we did another comic about that as well. So, and you can find the stories for a lot of our 3D printed items. We're actually collecting in a series of comic books. And this is the first one we did devoted to our 3D printed objects. And then this is more. I don't know if that code is going to really work too well, but we have it on our booth. Couple of articles for people who are more sort of research inclined, talking about 3D printing and archaeology, including one that focuses on the lab itself. And then I wanted to sort of close with this. So this is something I 3D scanned in 2019 in northern India. I was supposed to come back in 2020, but we all know what happened in 2020. And so I went back last December, and I brought with me a 3D printed replica, and I was able to give it to the temple's priest. And I talked to my Indian colleagues about the 3D printed object and the 3D scans that we had done and the 3D models that are free online. And I said, is this guy ever going to see any of the 3D models that we do? And he said, no. That's just not his world, but he could see and appreciate the 3D printed replica. So, and then that's my last slide. So thank you very much. It was not bad. I forgot I had my vampire skull with me. And a mummy sarcophagus, not actual size. Thank you.